speaking as someone who is not good at math or particularly good at grasping these things.
That
when you're reading a paragraph
that was
about
paint.
it, but just playing
Nice.
Kerbal. I know we always talk about Kerbal Space Program. If you've never played it, I mean, absolutely consider.
So these are my buddies over at NASA Spaceflight. Yeah. I told them I approve of the paint telestrator. That's very good.
Doesn't make sense to make the tanks bigger.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, JD Brown,
Car.
for that super chat. That was some excellent art from Ryan there. Really appreciate the illustration there.
Use what you have, I guess. I usually use paint to explain this stuff sometimes too. Yeah, thanks, W. All right, cool. We're gonna, after that brilliant paint analogy, we're gonna jump over to SpaceX's coverage. That was awesome. It's very cool. Change the title up. Yeah, there we go. Okay, here we go. All right, guys, we're inside of 10 minutes, or we're close to 10 minutes here for the launch. What I'm going to do is run the ads here because I don't want people to get pre-roll ads when the launch is happening. So I'm not really a fan of running ads too much, but we'll run them now. Well, nothing's really going on here. OVZON. The year isn't even 3 days old and there's a launch already. This is the second one, Sevi. Actually, third launch of the year if you want to know, like, total. India launched an X-ray observatory on the first. SpaceX launched Starlink 7.9 yesterday, and OVZON-3 on the third today.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Yeah, SpaceX has already launched. This will be their second launch attempt for the year.
Falcon 9 is a two-stage rocket that is designed and manufactured by SpaceX for the
thanks,
reliable and safe transport
just
of
not
people
okay. It's
and
amazing,
payloads
dude.
into Earth orbit and beyond. The entire vehicle stands at about 229 feet tall, or almost
Man,
as
look
tall
at Slick
as
40.
the Taj Mahal in India, which stands at 240 feet.
Yeah, look at Slick 40, man. Slick 40. It looks that crew access arm is so. What's a crew access arm? The names in aerospace engineering, guys, for stuff is usually pretty straightforward. Oh yeah, look, there's a Falcon Heavy booster.
On one of our autonomous drone ships, or back on land for future reuse. Reusability is extremely important as it allows us to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, which in turn drives down the cost of access to space.
Now, I like playing Hearts of Iron from time to time, dude, if that's what you're looking for. So it's funny because OTV-7, so SF Space Force 52 launched on Falcon Heavy actually a little over a week ago, right? And that had two Falcon Heavy boosters landing on the landing pad, so they took one off to make way for this one. There was still a single Falcon Heavy booster out there. You saw the booster with the nose cone on it. But what I was saying is, so the part of the reason why SpaceX launches a lot at why they've been launching a lot 11, 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning is because they're doing construction work on Slick 40 during the day and launching rockets at night, which is bananas to me. But OVZON has a launch window. Starlink missions don't necessarily have a launch window, right? Like the availability for those things pretty much it should be like you can pretty much you have a huge launch window for those, but for the long story short, but that crew access tower at Slick 40 is looking pretty complete. That's pretty dang close to being finished. This thing is, for people that don't know, crew access arm. The name is pretty self-explanatory. That's for people to be able to get in the rocket. Most launch pads do not have a crew access arm. There's only a certain amount of launch pads that have crew access arms to launch people into space in the world. There's a crew access arm in Russia for the Soyuz, right? There's a crew access arm at 39A for Dragon. There's a crew access arm at 39B for SLS. There's a crew access arm at Slick 40 for Falcon 9 again, and there's a crew access arm at Slick 41. which is just north of Pad 40, Pad 41 for Atlas 5 N22 Atlas 5 N22, which is the Starliner configuration for Atlas. There's only so many more pads. There are more pads out there without crew access arms than with, but it's still cool that at this particular moment in time there are more launch pads that are active with operational crew access arms than there's ever been, even during the space race, which is pretty bananas. So it's cool to see Pad 40 with a crew access arm.
What sets us apart from any other competing satellite communication provider is that we manage and control the entire service value.
Hey, NASA 88, how are you?
We deliver
I like your name.
as a service with immediate connectivity.
Is there one for Falcon Heavy?
Our commitment.
Falcon Heavy can't launch. Is not rated to launch Dragon to analysts.
24/7, 365 customer service and support in both a centralized and
Jersey, what's going on, bro? We still out here,
satellite
my guy.
Communications has today
You lurking
become
it
an
up today or what?
integral part of the broader communications landscape that connects and powers the world. The
India's
geopolitical tensions in the world.
India's working on it, Jock. They don't have the Gangan crew access arm. Oh yeah, I forgot about China. There's also Jinquan in China, and India has the. They're looking for the crew access arm for. I'm not sure which pad for their Gangan capsule. So there's not a lot, but we're seeing more and more. Is the point that I'm trying to get at, which is really freaking cool.
Communication solutions are critical. OVZON operates in the premium segment with customers
It is
and
a Swedish
markets
company,
with
so
no
yes.
fail requirements
Swedish-American.
and in demand on guaranteed performance, resiliency.
No, I'm elated. Haven't heard anything.
OVZON is well positioned in this market. At OVZON, we're confident about our ability to deliver and meet the world's rapidly increasing need for high-performing, resilient, and fast mobile connectivity via satellite.
Yeah, Wen Chan heard that. Yep. But yeah, it's still cool.
Shortly, the transporter erector, or TE, will return
But
away from.
it's kind of interesting, dude, to see, like, why does SpaceX need two pads that can launch crew into space? Well, that we talked about it a little bit before for Space News, but that pretty much indicates, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it. That pretty much indicates that to me that they're planning a dramatic scale up in launches. And they might need to launch people from this pad, which is cool. Slick 40 has never launched people into space. Never. Well, the only launch pads on the Cape that have launched people into space, or above the Kármán line, let's say, are LC5, LC14, LC19, 39A, 39B. From the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, and Shuttle missions. That's it. Is this just another Starlink launch? No. This launch is OVZON-3. OVZON is a U.S.-Swedish company. This is a communication satellite that's going to geostationary transfer orbit. This is a cool mission because, okay, so on top of being the 10th flight for Booster 1076 here, the 76th Falcon 9 first stage to be manufactured, it is the first Falcon 9 that's going to do a return to launch site landing for a geostationary transfer. This OVZON satellite is a tiny satellite. It's only 1,500 kilos, so that's really small for a geostationary satellite. But because of the small payload, right, and low mass of the payload, the first stage has enough fuel with such a light payload that it can shoot that thing off to geostationary transfer, right, turn around, come back, and land on land, which is what we're going to see. How many stages this evening? Hardcastle, Falcon 9's a two-stage to-orbit launch vehicle. It's going to be a twilight launch. Oh, yeah. You're going to get some really nice illumination of the plume on the way up. Geek, what's going on? You know what's better than one crew access arm? It's like 42 crew access arms at the same time, man. Did you mention the access arm for New Shepard? Yeah, I suppose if you want to throw that in there, too. The point that I was trying to make, dudes, wasn't to make a comprehensive list of all crew access arms. Just to point out that more pads have crew access arms right now than any point in human history, which is sweet. There are more ways to get into, Well, not more ways to get into space all the way, but more pads have crew access arms than any point in history. All the vehicles that they launch, we'll wait on those. About to go outside and witness the jellyfish. Nice, nice. Too cloudy to see it in Sarasota. Yep. Do you think you could see it from Jacksonville? If there's no clouds, Space Herp, you should be able to.
Coming up in just a few moments.
Stage 2 lock load is complete.
Okay. And there's that call out that
should be
stage
getting
2
into gas
loading is
closeout
complete
here
on the vehicle. Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen.
This is gas closeout right here that you're seeing. Basically, that gray truss structure to the left of the vehicle is called a transporter erector. It also, on the transporter erector, they build the vehicle basically on this thing horizontally, and then it rolls out of that hangar right there and turns upright. So it's kind of the cradle that you assemble the rocket on. But it also does handle second stage fueling and oxidizer filling operations. So the fuel lines for the second stage, which is this piece right here, go up the side of the rocket, and then they go in right there. When the second stage is full of fuel and oxidizer, like just, stage 2, LOX load is complete, right? They evac all the fuel out of that thing. And the fuel and the fuel's RP1. They just drain the fuel out. But the RP1, they need to make sure that it gets out of there. So they shoot nitrogen gas up the line, and the liquid oxygen shoots out that vent right there. And when it hits the atmosphere, it evaporates. That's what that big vape cloud that came out of the TE was. No problem, Taylor. Cast will end after stage landing. Yep. What was the fuel? It's LOX and RP1. It's basically jet fuel. Okay, here we go. T-minus 20 seconds.
Discovery.
Chatter, you go.
T-minus 15 seconds to count.
10. Sound suppression system is primed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ignition.
0. Mission liftoff.
All right, OVZON-3 is in the air. Second launch of 2024 for SpaceX. Vehicles cleared the tower.
Vehicle pitching down range.
Someone lead chambers going around up.
Power band. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate the prime sub. Move the mouse cursor out of the way. Happy New Year, Sleazy. 30 seconds in. Call.
T plus 30 seconds and counting.
In the next 10 seconds should be for power and telemetry.
At Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying the OVZON-3 payload. Now, during the rocket's ascent, we'll tilt the engines, the technical term for that being gimbling, and that's when we turn the rocket horizontally in what we call...
Power and telemetry is nominal.
In what we call a gravity turn. The rocket will still be going up, but will now also be headed horizontally away from the launch pad.
144 on the
Moments
manifest
ago, we
as of
also
now.
throttled the engines down in
Falcon 9
preparation.
is supersonic.
In preparation for max Q
Super
or
Sonic,
maximum
60
aerodynamic
seconds
pressure.
into the flight. OVZON-3 is now 10 kilometers off the surface here, traveling
Q.
1,500
And there's
kilometers
that
an
call
hour.
for max Q, and this is when the vehicle experiences the greatest amount of aerodynamic stress as it ascends through the Earth's atmosphere. The rocket typically needs to go about 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order
Second
to avoid
stage,
being pulled back down
priming
to Earth and get into orbit.
Is what that M1 vac
As
call
the vehicle
is.
continues to ascend, make sure to watch that telemetry at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen.
Oh, I am. 25 kilometers in altitude, 1 minute 39 seconds into the flight.
Coming up
Traveling
shortly,
at
we're going to
3,000
have
kilometers
5
an hour.
events in rapid succession, starting with MECO, or main engine cutoff. This will be followed by stage separation. Then we'll have the stage 1 flip. This will be followed by the second engine start 1. And then lastly, we'll have the boost back burn startup on the Falcon 9 first stage. And the sequence of events should start in about 10 seconds from now.
What rate do they do the roll program? You generally want to do the roll program when you're going a little bit slower, 7. So it takes a second for that whole 1 million pounds of vehicle to get off the freaking pad. So you ideally want to do it relatively fast at a low altitude, well, with low velocity. There's main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage separation, 2 minute 20 seconds into the flight. Upper stage ignition. Looking good.
Boost back startup.
Stage 1 is now using its onboard thrusters to turn around and relight its engine to fly back to the landing
stage
site.
separation. Stage
There we
1
go.
flip, followed by the second engine start 1, and then the Stage 1 boost back startup.
This, you can see the shadow of the first
Coming up shortly
stage
will be
reflecting off
fairing
of the
separation.
plumes, which are interacting
This
between
is
the
when we
first and second
jettison the
stage here.
fairing
So what's going on here, the reason why you're getting all this turbulent air and stuff is because the first stage is facing this way with the second stage. Second stage separates and ignites, and then the first stage turns around and fires its engine. You're seeing the plume interaction because the first stage turned around, the rocket engine's exhaust gases are interacting with each other as they go further and further apart. That's what all this stuff going on here is all this flow phenomenon that's going on. And the reason why you see the shadow of the booster is because the shadow is going up against that plume interaction there. Also, because this launched at twilight, boost back burn is complete there. Because this launch in the twilight, when the rocket gets to a high enough altitude, the sun starts shining on it. So you get, that's what I mean about getting a nice illuminated plume. And in this particular case, we got a nice illuminated shadow. Now what you're seeing here at 3 minute 55 into the flight, first stage telemetry indicates 120 kilometer apogee, which is pretty much, or not 121 kilometer apogee, it's 120 kilometers off the ground, traveling at 1700 kilometers an hour. Basically what the first stage is doing here is it's these flashes that you're seeing on the screen are the onboard nitrogen, cold gas nitrogen thrusters that are positioning the booster for its entry, burn, and landing. You can see that the position of the shadow is changing because the booster's slowly rotating it around to orient it correctly for landing back at the pad. What you're seeing here, these kind of snowflakes that are coming off the side of the booster as it's pulsing those thrusters, is the gases from the thrusters solidifying as they hit the solidifying as they get outgassed into the vacuum. When you have cold gas nitrogen thrusters and you take nitrogen that's pretty cold and you outgas that gas into a vacuum, all the heat will basically before it gets out and fully into the vacuum, all the heat will basically dissipate, right? It'll suck all the heat out of it because vacuum. And the gas, when you outgas gas at lower temperature into a vacuum, it'll solidify in that split second where the temperature drops, and then it'll just stay like that. So those snowflakes that you see of it aren't like ice. In this particular scenario, it's solid nitrogen from the outgassing of the nitrogen thrusters. That's what all that flashing is. At the request of the customer, Mark, the customer didn't want stage 2 telemetry broadcast. So, yeah, see all this stuff? That's all nitrogen. It's all solid nitrogen coming out of those thrusters. Now, what we're starting to see here is you're starting to see some turbulence down at the bottom of the booster there. What they're doing is they're priming the rocket engine and thermally conditioning the rocket engine for relight. The next thing coming up here, 6 minutes into the flight, is the entry burn. This is personally my favorite part. This is where Falcon 9 fires its engine while it's coming back down, going through re-entry. Now, Falcon 9's first stage doesn't make it all the way to orbit, but it does. It is going fast enough when it's falling back down to facilitate the need of a thermal protection system. The cool thing about that is that you're looking at its thermal protection system. That's the heat shield. Falcon 9 itself doesn't have a heat shield. There's no tiles or anything like you'd see on the space shuttle or an ablator heat shield like you'd see on a capsule. Falcon 9 uses its rocket engines to push the re-entry heating away. It gives you a cool thermal barrier for the stage. And that's what you saw right there. The phenomenon is called Super Sonic Retro-Propulsion. It was an idea that was pioneered by NASA for landing stuff on Mars, using the engines as your heat shield because the first stage already has the heat. The first stage already has engines. Might as well use those. So we've gone through supersonic retro-propulsion, and now you can see the Falcon 9 first stage coming back down into the clouds. We got some low clouds here. Booster's now 7 kilometers off the deck, traveling at 1,200 kilometers a second and slowing back down. You can see the lights at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Landing burn has started. Rocket's going through some pretty high turbulence here. Falcon 9 is 1 mile off the deck here. Oh, great shots of the booster coming down. Half a mile.
MVAC shut down.
Landing leg should be deployed.
Landing leg deploy.
There it is. And at T plus 8
Stage
minutes,
1 landing confirmed.
6 seconds, booster 1082 or 1076 is back down on the deck. Everything's looking good. That's a great landing.
And as a reminder, we'll be ending the webcast here at
Nominal parking orbit.
the request of our customer. We also just heard confirmation of nominal parking orbit. All of us here at SpaceX want to thank our customer OVZON-3 for entrusting us with tonight's mission. We also want to give a shout out to the Range and Federal Aviation Administration for supporting tonight's efforts. That'll conclude our webcast coverage of launch of 2024 and two.
Yeah, good call, Phil. See the guy sitting at the center desk right there? That's Bill Gerstenmaier. Bill Gerstenmaier was a space shuttle engineer. Did 30 years in the shuttle program. He's SpaceX's vice president of flight reliability. Yeah, Gerst actually worked his way all the way up to basically NASA's, what would basically, the job title's a little bit different, but basically NASA's lead engineer. Yeah, he ran NASA's like human spaceflight engineering for a long time. And then SpaceX poached him. Hey, the guy has 30 years experience with reusable spacecraft, something that SpaceX is looking to accomplish. So it's not, I mean, what are you not going to do that? Yeah, right? Like, yeah, that guy's a spaceflight legend. Also, he has a really awesome mustache. Yep. Is Kerbal too forgiving to make use of Super Sonic Retro-Propulsion? Kerbal 1? Yeah. So what was the goal for this particular mission? Raythard, good question. This particular mission was SpaceX providing a launch service for a customer. OVZON. It's a joint Swedish-US kind of company. And what OVZON, that was an OVZON-3. I'm reading off of the mission synopsis, but I can tell you what it does. I'm not just reading a cue card. Like, OVZON-3 is a communications satellite. It's a communications satellite that's going to geostationary orbit. So it's a commercial communications satellite. Something, another like commercial communications satellite would be like Sirius XM satellites or like DirecTV satellites. It's that kind of satellite. I'm not exactly sure what OVZON's market share is for communications, but it's going to a similar orbit as the satellites that you use to like watch TV or listen to the satellite radio. It's going to an orbit like that. How many monitors do you have? 4. Why would they not watch the second stage telemetry broadcast? So because you could figure out where it is, Alleviate. Or maybe there's some component on the satellite that they don't want people to see. It broadcasts ABBA 24/7 across the globe. Please, no. Thanks for the commentary. You're full of useful, interesting info. That's what I do. Hardcastle, my meal ticket back in the day was playing Kerbal and doing these. I mean, it's still playing Kerbal, but yeah. It's still my meal ticket, I used to like Pringles. I still do, but I used to as well. Rip Mitch. So, yeah, that's that was the OVZON-3 launch coverage. Thanks for watching it with me. Okay. Were there any other questions? Plus, he probably can exert a lot more direct control for SpaceX rather than fighting politics. Yeah, Bill Gerstenmaier, dude, that guy's a legend. That guy that was, on that center console, he's a legend in the shuttle program. Because he literally ran the shuttle program and basically until it stopped. Unbelievable. Like, unbelievable resume.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Did I miss the first stage landing? Yep. RTLS from a GTO mission. The first time that's ever been done. No Nobody other than SpaceX has ever reused a first stage liquid fuel booster. The closest equivalent would be the SRBs from the shuttle program, right? But not even SpaceX, with all their booster reuse, has ever tried to land a Falcon 9 back on land with a satellite that's going to geostationary. But OVZON-3, from what I can tell, is not very heavy. It's not a high-mass satellite, which afforded Falcon 9 the capability of being able to get all the way back to the landing site. The satellite mass is 1,800 kilos. So, long story short, satellite's really light. You fill up the rocket with the same amount of fuel, rocket could shoot the satellite further. Or in this particular case, use more, get the second stage and the payload up to the speed that they need to get where they need to go, and then still have some fuel left over to turn all the way back around and land. I'm telling you, that was a pretty crazy trajectory. SpaceX obviously didn't make it seem like much, but an RTLS from geostationary transfer is a pretty nutty trajectory. It doesn't, like, once again, with the first stage, it doesn't really look like it. It doesn't look like it's that big of a deal, right? But, I mean, because, SpaceX makes this stuff look like it's a joke. It's really not. It's freaking difficult. I want to go back and check some of that cast out, though. So, I wanted to see... Nope. I wanted to see some of those shots of the booster coming in, right? Give it a second, right there. We had some shots from SSRP right here. Let's take a look at this.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there's that confirmation of startup of the entry burn on our Falcon 9 first stage. As a reminder, on the left-hand side of your screen is a view from the booster live,
Look at that.
and the right side shows...
So I want to point out here, Falcon 9 is going fast enough to experience re-entry heating. Like, you have entry interface. At entry interface, you're going 4,100 kilometers an hour. That's pretty damn fast. That is enough to experience re-entry heating. In fact, you can see a little bit right before the engine fires. Right there. See that right there? This phenomenon that's happened over the grid fins, which are basically the hypersonic stabilizers and control surfaces. They're not really stabilizers. They're more of a control surface. Those are your hypersonic control surfaces here. You can see plasma accumulation on the grid fins here for a split second. This is the phenomenon that Falcon 9 is trying to avoid. Falcon 9 does have some thermal protection components on it, but nothing that really can survive re-entry heating for too long. So, what Falcon 9 does to come back down in one piece to avoid getting burned up in by the atmosphere, by what's called compression heating here, is it fires its rocket engines to give you a nice boundary of cooler gas to basically push the re-entry heating away. You can see right here there's plasma accumulating on the grid fins here, and then when the rocket starts firing its engine, that goes away because you're inside of that cool column of gas. That's Bill Gerstenmaier, Danzu. Now, I know what people are saying. That doesn't look very cold, man. Well, yeah, it's not. It's rocket exhaust. That's pretty hot. But it's not as hot as re-entry heating. It's not going to completely cool it down. It's not like the engines are shooting out like a all-new ice cube system. We're not shooting out damn freeze right here, okay? It's light. Handy adjustable, ZF1. No, sorry. It's not that it's going to freeze the dang booster, but the Falcon 9 can withstand these temperatures because it needs to do that to work correctly. So these gases are already something that the booster is designed to kind of operate near and around in because, that whole going up part, right? Now, keep in mind, it is flying through its own plume, right? But the rocket exhaust is not nearly as hot as the reentry heating. The reentry heating is enough to cause damage. The rocket exhaust is not. So it provides basically a cool column of gas. That's basically your heat shield right there. You don't get to see this very often because SpaceX does a lot more drone ship landings nowadays than they do RTLS. And there's no upward facing camera that we know about. I mean, SpaceX probably has one. There's no upward facing camera on the drone ship to be able to see something like this that is publicly available. I mean, SpaceX does post some stuff from time to time, but you're not going to get an image like that. Right? Pretty dang cool. So basically what this is doing here, give me one moment, I'll show you a picture. I have a diagram. That I can show you. So basically what's going on there is the rocket engine is firing, right? And it's basically pushing what's called a bow shock. See this dark line? That's the reentry heating. You don't want that line near the rocket. The rocket exhaust is shooting out the engine, right? And it's basically moving the bow shock further away from the vehicle so the reentry heating doesn't get near it. That's the really quick and simple explanation. If that looks like there's a lot of stuff there that's a little more complicated than what you understand, rocket science. Long story short, why don't we just take our entry heating and put it over there? Oh, there you go, rocket. Neat. So, if the rocket engine wasn't firing, this bow shock would be over here somewhere. Right? And you don't, that right there is bad. So this detached bow shock here, guys, this shock wave at hypersonic speeds, anything that crosses this line that's part of the rocket, or if this line gets too close to your vehicle, that shock is basically plasma. It's on fire. It's fiery plasma. Think about if this line gets anywhere near the vehicle, it would be like taking a plasma cutter to it, because that's basically what it is. Yeah. Anybody knows what a plasma cutter does? It cuts through pretty much anything. This is what rockets and capsules that are coming back from space have to fight against. What's going on here is that the incoming air is getting compressed against the bottom of the vehicle, and the quick and easy way to say it is that the vehicle's going so dang fast that gases basically build up and they compress against the bottom of the vehicle, right? Or the business end, whatever part of the vehicle's flying first. And when you compress a gas, it gets really hot per the ideal gas law, right? And it compresses the gases so much that it starts to rip air molecules apart. Yeah, that's right. You heard that right. It's going so fast it rips part of the atmosphere apart, just temporarily. It's only for a second. Like people will be like, "Oh my God, it rips a hole in the atmosphere." No. What a rocket is doing when it's coming back down from space and going into the atmosphere, we don't need to worry about it ripping a hole. That's like saying, "Oh, if I throw a rock into this lake, it's going to drain the lake," because there's a temporary like flutter in the water. No, it doesn't work like that. Right. Oh, if I throw a rock into this lake, it's going to punch a hole and the lake will drain. Nope, doesn't work like that. So basically the rocket's going fast enough to rip air molecules apart. And when you rip air molecules apart, right, a tremendous amount of energy gets released. And that energy release turns to plasma. Rockets rip the atmosphere a new one. Yep. If you extend the engine nozzle, do you widen the bow shock? A different expansion ratio on your nozzle could potentially do something like that, 7. Yeah, sure. The nozzle geometry, this part right here, the cone piece, definitely has a lot to do with it. Absolutely. But I don't think that, a bigger nozzle is necessarily going to change much here. It's very much... So, okay, what's going on here is where this dotted line is, that's where the rocket exhaust is going, right? because the rocket exhaust basically gets shot off to the sides because the rocket exhaust, the plasma. This is the reason. English. This is the reason why I call it plasma accumulation. Because here's the pain in the butt about reentry heating. Okay. Air molecules are going to come up against this thing, right? And they're going to compress up against it. And they're basically going to get compressed so much that they will rip themselves apart and they'll turn to plasma. Here's the thing about that plasma. It doesn't just shoot off to the side. It accumulates. The reason why is because more air is coming up against that plasma and getting compressed up against the plasma. That's what this bow shock is. The plasma won't kind of just shoot off to the sides unless you make something to do that, right? It'll stay there. It'll just stay there. It will not go away. It's really annoying, actually. Where's the full thing? Here we go. So it's just like right before we saw the thing fire its engines, you can see the plasma accumulating. That's actually what that phenomenon is right there. You're seeing it right there. You're seeing accumulation on the grid fins because the front side of the grid fin is kind of spiked and it's designed to create mini bow shocks in between the waffle iron holes on the grid fin and actually make it a useful control surface at speed. The grid fin is basically not only ripping the air apart, but cutting it like a knife. And the bow shocks actually get channeled into these squares there, just in case anybody was wondering how those work. If you had like a regular control surface at this speed and tried to do something like this, all you'd do is just make an air brake. These things you can actually use to steer at high speed. But you are seeing plasma accumulation there because they are ripping the air apart because they're flying through the same atmosphere that the rocket engine is. But when the rocket engine starts to fire, watch, it goes away. Whoop. Gone. Because you're inside of that cooler column of gas, right? Once again, all that's doing is pushing the bow shock away from anything that you want to get back. And it's using the rocket exhaust to do it. That's what supersonic retropropulsion is. It's using the rocket exhaust as a heat shield. And the rocket exhaust, because it's cooler than the bow shock, plasma is hotter than fire, right? The gases will absorb some of the heat. And absorb it, if you're taking some of the energy out of the plasma, if your exhaust gases are taking some of the energy out of the plasma, that means your rocket isn't, right? Because if you had something that re-entered without a heat shield, that plasma knife would get near it and you'd flux way too much heat into whatever vehicle you have, and it would melt it and burn it up, which is what re-entry basically is. You need a way to push it out of the way, and you need a way to dissipate that the kinetic energy, which is now being turned into heat energy. You have to find a way to dissipate it, and this isn't that far off of what like a heat shield would do on like a Dragon capsule or an Orion capsule or an Apollo capsule. This is not that far off. What a heat shield does is it's designed to burn. When it burns, it outgasses. And the gas that the exhaust from the heat shield burning does the exact same thing, which is actually super freaking cool. It's outgassing. The heat shield burns cooler than plasma. Don't get me wrong. It's still burning really, really hot, and it is on fire. But that fire is a cooler temperature than the bow shock. Than your plasma knife, as Peter Beck put it. The plasma knife. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you want to think Star Wars, Panta, think of that dark line right there as a lightsaber. Anything that crosses its path, zap, bye-bye. We'll get, you'll get Darth Mauled by that thing, all right, to use Star Wars references. Right? You don't want to get Darth Mauled. Bad idea. You call that a knife. That's a knife, mate. So how does the bow shock work with multiple engines like Starship? Well, SpaceX, so a couple of different things. Falcon 9 is made out of aluminum. Falcon 9 also uses different propellants than Starship. Same oxidizer, different fuel. Those are two really big things to learn. Starship is stainless steel, right? I'm pretty sure you already knew that, but just in case for anybody else, right? Starship is stainless. You're stainless in using methylox, okay? So methylox you have different impulse from your propellants than you do with hydrocarbons, right? Hydrocarbons, not very efficient, but they tend to be more energetic. You get a bigger explosion, but it's not an efficient explosion. Methane is, you get a little more efficient explosion, but it's still a damn powerful one. Because you're using different propellants and because the vehicle is made out of different materials. So Starship being made out of stainless, right? Starship being made out of stainless means it can afford to be closer to that plasma knife and you don't really have to worry about it. Raptor engines also being staged combustion cycle and burning at an insanely high chamber pressure means that they can pretty much take the heat. They can tank the heat straight up. So, believe it or not, Super Heavy will not do supersonic retro-propulsion when it comes back down. It doesn't need to. It can absorb any re-entry heating that's going to happen. Now, I know people are going to look at it and be like, what? What do you mean? It's way bigger. Well, yeah, that's the point. It's way bigger. More things to heat up. If you have a bigger sheet of metal, it's going to take a lot more heat energy to melt the thing than a smaller piece of metal, right? Metal absorbs heat pretty good, and steel can take a pretty dang high temperature. Makes sense, right? Now, the other part is, hired exactly. The other part is that Super Heavy, and here's a little bit about first stage delta V and efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. We said that methane is a little more efficient and less energetic than hydrocarbons, right? Than like RP1. But the name of the game in terms of real efficiency with your first stage, you need a pretty damn energetic reaction. So we got a pretty good one with methane and liquid oxygen on Starship. But the name of the game with first stage efficiency is thrust to weight ratio. Efficiency is not what first stages are about. First stages are about getting out of the atmosphere. And second stages are about beating the grav well, right? Getting out of the atmosphere is a pain in the butt because there's all that damn air in the way. Right? So the first stage, the name of the game with more delta V with your first stage is higher TWR. So Super Heavy, believe it or not, will have a main engine cutoff that's actually shorter than Falcon 9. Falcon 9's nine main engines in the first stage usually shut off at about 2.5 minutes into the flight on an 8-minute total ascent. Super Heavy is going to be a lot less time than that. 2-minute main engine cutoff, or booster engine cutoff, I think is what SpaceX wants to call it. So because of that, because of the way higher TWR on the first stage and lesser of a burn time with a slightly more efficient propellant, Super Heavy, and also coupled with it being made out of stainless steel, right, means it basically can tank whatever entry heating it's going to encounter. No supersonic retro-propulsion is needed. It'll be able to just basically absorb the heat straight up, and you don't need to worry about it. Well, at least that's the plan. We'll see if that actually happens. All right, Sun Temple, see you, buddy. Plasma should be bright enough for Super Heavy to be visible at night, though, right? I mean, there's going to be some plasma accumulation floating. It's just, once again, how close is that plasma knife? How close is the lightsaber, so to speak, getting to your vehicle? And what's the total heat flux, or what's the total impulse of entry heating that your vehicle can absorb before stuff gets damaged? Yeah.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Hey, Demon Hat, 67-month resub. Thank you. And then Geo had a 10-month resub. Thank you. I appreciate the support, guys. Got it. Remove the atmosphere. Yeah. But yeah, that's going back to Falcon 9. Falcon 9, because it's made out of aluminum and it flies basically on a higher trajectory, right? Frankly, I was going to say SpaceX's second stage has a high amount of TWR, but because it's made out of aluminum, because it flies on a higher trajectory, main engine cutoff is later, your staging velocity is higher, meaning the first stage is going to fall back down to Earth from a much higher altitude than what Super Heavy is. And it's made out of like aluminum, right? It needs to do that supersonic retro-propulsion. It needs to do this burn here, which is, once again, I still think that's an insanely cool phenomenon. Falcon 9 doesn't need a heat shield because its engines are the heat shield. The engine exhausts, more specifically. Doesn't Super Heavy separate higher than Falcon 9? I'm pretty sure it's going to be lower, Hells. Aluminum. You're my heat shield. Damn. Yeah, it's pretty damn cool. Yeah, I already played the mission profile, Foz. And then seeing the thing come back down, there was a really nice shot from the ground here of the stage coming back down. Let's see. Oh. That's cool, man. It got to 70 kilometers on IFT2. Well, Hellzeek and Super Heavy got to 70 kilometers on IFT2. This Falcon 9 first stage, 1076, that we just saw had an apogee of 120, what was it, 120 kilometers. So, Falcon 9s fly way higher, dude. Yeah, see, the grid fins will stabilize the booster until. See, here's the thing: the grid fins are good at moving the air around, right, and changing the direction of incoming air to steer the vehicle, right. But in that last couple of seconds right before landing, the grid fins don't have enough air moving across them fast enough. So it's really cool. Falcon 9 to compensate for this, to make sure that the thing doesn't like tip over when you come back down to land. At the very last second, the grid fins will stop steering and they'll lock into place. And then the thrusters, the nitrogen thrusters, will start up again just to keep the booster nice and stable during landing. Right now, the rocket is aerodynamically stabilized because the grid fins are moving the air, right? They're moving the air around. And because they're moving the air around, they're creating turbulent air off the back, which is drag. Basically, you're creating drag up at the top of the booster. It's basically going to fall like basically a guided munition at this point. Think of a bomb with fins on the back, right? That's basically what Falcon 9 is doing, except at the last second, instead of impacting and blowing up, it fires its engines and stops. So, right before you get to landing, there's a brief period of what's called aerodynamic instability. Right now, we're nice and stable because these things are creating a lot of drag. But when you have to slow down because the ground's coming, right? And because of that, there's a point where the grid fins aren't going to do anything anymore because you're going too slow. Watch. The grid fins will stop. They'll lock into place, and then the thrusters will start firing for stabilization. Yeah, see, they're doing their thing, and stop. See, and then the thrusters start. See? Throughout the RCS will start firing. You can actually see it in this shot right there. See him? See him firing up there? Cool, huh? I'd also like to point out that booster is 150 feet tall. It's about as tall as a 15-story building, and it just came back from space. Like, yeah, no problem. No big deal. Von Braun would really like Falcon 9, Dak. Von Braun wishes he had a rocket like this. But then again, I'm pretty sure Elon wishes he had a Saturn V, too. That's why he's trying to make something similar to it. Is the RCS thrust limited at 100% when landing? Thrust limited? No. Dude, it needs to be full blast. Yeah, whatever the maximum amount of thrust those cold gas thrusters make. Say it's a question of priorities. That's a shot of SpaceX mission control right there. Yeah, Von Braun would really like the rocket reuse, because the interesting thing is, little history lesson here. Von Braun originally conceived the Saturn V to at least be partially reusable. He went on, it's interesting because he went on the, believe it or not, he went on Walt Disney. He went on the Disney Channel in the 50s and showed people that you could have a partially reusable rocket that's capable of getting to the moon. He basically wanted to make something like Dream Chaser on top of a Saturn V. Or, well, Space Shuttle-esque on top of a Saturn V. Take a look. Yeah, see. First stage is down here. Fins for stabilization. Second stage. And then a third stage kind of built into a delta-winged vehicle. It's almost the space shuttle on top of a Saturn V. The crazy thing to me is, you know, that kind of looks like Starship. Kind of. It's not exactly. I mean, Super Heavy doesn't have huge wings on the bottom, right? But that's really interesting to me. Like, that almost is, at least conceptually, that's what you'd want Starship to. That's what Starship is. But instead, Starship has this part attached to the winged part of the vehicle. Pretty crazy, right? This thing was supposed to be able to move seven or eight people up, if I'm remembering right. But this is what he envisioned for, like, before this. This was like proto Saturn V here. Well, we all know how well wings on top of a rocket work. Well, that's why he, you know, if you have wings on top of your rocket, just put bigger wings at the bottom of your rocket and you're good to go. What does the XR, Experimental Rocket 1, I think is what he called it? I forget. That's what he wanted the shuttle to look like. It's kind of weird. It, you know, wings up front, wings at the back. Kind of bears a passing resemblance to Starship. It's very weird. Literally how you do it in Kerbal. Hey, man, somebody had to figure all this stuff out. And that guy is... Him and Von Braun and Sergei Korolev are the two guys that basically played Kerbal in real life in the 60s. So, I mean, yeah, they basically played Kerbal in... Yeah, played Kerbal in real life. Like, if you look at this picture of Von Braun with the Saturn 1B right there, the Saturn 1B is a bunch of smaller rocket fuel tanks clustered together to make a bigger rocket. That's literally KSP. Just add more fuel tanks and engines, bro. Just add more fuel tanks. We have rocket parts a la carte. Just add more fuel tanks, bro. Seriously, just more fuel tanks, bro. Please, bro. Just one more fuel tank. I swear it'll have enough Delta V. I swear we'll get Jeb back. I swear the rescue mission will work. Please, just one more booster, bro. Please. Wait. I can't play KSP in real life? Where are the green guys? No. Well, Von Braun, they weren't playing KSP in real life. They were playing HSP in real life. It's a lot more difficult. Human space program. Differences. Zalkovsky is crying. Deployment of OVZON confirmed. Nice. Bro, I'll get to Val. I'll get Val to you next week. All I need is another booster and some fuel. You'll see, bro. Please, bro. Please, just add one more booster. We'll save Jeb this time, bro. I swear. That's my favorite. I love that meme. That meme makes me laugh. That meme was pretty funny, dude. Oh, boy. Here. Actually, speaking of that meme, this one was posted on X yesterday. That one's still funny. How about helicopter of the Saturn V first stage? Yikes. I mean, I'm sure on some planet that would work, Make, but your weak link is this is Earth. It's just, bro, please one more, Tessa. I forget where it comes from, but bro, just one more collider, bro. I promise, bro. Just one more collider. We'll find all the particles, bro. It's just a bigger collider, bro. Please, just one more collider, and we'll figure out dark matter, bro. Bro, come on, just give me $22 billion, and we'll solve physics. I promise, bro. Bro, please, we just need to build one more collider. Bro, please, just one more collider, bro. Please, bro. That's my favorite, man. Just one more Hubble, bro, please. Remember that video of Von Braun with a big smile on his face? That would be his reaction to Starship. Yeah, he'd be digging that. This was your view from the launch visceral? Let me see. Ooh, nice. Hey, nice plume. Yeah, see, you get some really nice backlighting when you launch at dusk because even though it's dark here, right? The sun has gone over the horizon. When the rocket goes up and it flies a little bit higher, the sun is still up there because shadows and stuff, right? So you get some really cool backlighting of the rocket exhaust. This is an awesome picture, Visceral. Yeah, see? There's the first stage boosting back, and there's the second stage going up into space. That's really, really, really cool. In that turbulent phenomenon of the first stage engine interacting with the second stage plume, you can see all that going on right there. That's a great shot, dude. Hear me out. A particle collider around the sun, bro. Please, bro. It'll just cost $30 bajillion, bro. Please. Give me 1 second. Thanks, man. I was just getting home from work and saw it. Forgot it was happening. What a nice surprise. Yeah, man. Rockets are sweet. Please, bro. Let me make an SSTO again. It'll work this time, bro. Please. We fixed the composite tanks, bro. Please. Ah, that hurts, Big Zig. That hurts, man. Do you think Kraken drives are possible in KSP2? I don't know, Panta. Even if they were possible, I don't think we can get the editor precise enough to be able to make one as reliable as the ones that we made in 1. Guys, I'm telling you, man. Is it weird, just on a side note? I'm digging KSP2 science mode, right? Like, I'm digging it. It's pretty fun. Playing KSP2 is making me want to play KSP1. Is that weird? It's not this isn't a mark on KSP2. It's just, I want it. It's very strange. Just came to say your background is sick. Thanks, Simon. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, KSP2 is making me want to play KSP1. The reason isn't any more than just, you know, KSP1's a lot more fleshed out, and we could do... I really like building super technical, super technical, awesome, nerdy stuff in KSP. And you just KSP2, because it's early access, you just can't do it right now. To be fair, KSP1 at this time during early access is the same thing, right? Like, it's KSP1 10 years ago at this time, you couldn't really do crazy stuff. It was just put a bunch of rocket engines together and then kind of hope you can get into space. So, you should make a wallpaper from that background for people. It's iconic. That would be up to Visceral. Yeah. Just one more pad, bro. Please, please, bro. Isn't strange, but it hints at how unfinished it is. Yeah, whatever, dude. Like, you know, we're patient. Your KSP 1 hour spreadsheet needs updating. Life support talk on stationeers made me want to play life support mods in KSP 1. Cool. Yeah, something like that, Chief. Yep. Anyway. Yeah, it's kind of jonesing, man. Anyway.